They say if you stare into the darkness long enough, it stares back. I always thought that was just a poetic way of talking about depression or fear. But nobody ever told me what to do when your own reflection in the train window doesn't move when you do. I never believed in the passengers that aren't really there. Not until 10 minutes ago. Not until I saw my own reflection blink at me while my eyes were wide open in terror. If you are listening to this and you take the midnight line out of the city, check your seat. If you find a crumpled yellow note tucked into the cushion, do not read it. Just get off. Get off while you still can. My name is David, and up until last Tuesday, I took the same commute every single day, the 11:15 p.m. outbound train. It's usually quiet, just tired shift workers, students with headphones, and the occasional drunk falling asleep in the corner. It's mundane, it's boring, it's safe. Or at least I thought it was. That night, my usual train was canceled due to technical difficulties. The station was freezing. The intercom crackled and announced a replacement service, the 11:59 special service. I should have just called a cab. It would have cost me $50, but I'd still be me. Before I tell you what happened when the doors closed, I have to ask, have you ever been on public transport late at night, a bus, a train, a subway, and felt the atmosphere just shift, like the air got heavy, or the person sitting across from you felt wrong? Tell me your story in the comments below. I need to know I'm not the only one.
The train that arrived didn't look like the modern silver cars we usually get. It looked older. The seats were a faded, dusty red velvet, not the hard blue plastic I was used to. The lights hummed with a sound that made my teeth ache. I got into the third car. It was empty, just me. I sat down, tossed my bag on the floor, and leaned my head back. That's when I felt it, a lump in the lower back of the seat. Annoyed, I reached behind me and pulled out a piece of paper. It was old, yellowed, and felt greasy to the touch. It wasn't trash, it was a list, handwritten in erratic, shaky cursive. At the top, it said, "Survival Guide for the Night Shift." I chuckled. I thought it was a prank, maybe a scavenger hunt game for teenagers. I started reading. Rule 1. The stops are not announced. Count them. If the train stops for the 4th time, do not look out the window. The station doesn't exist. Rule 2. You may see a conductor. He will ask you for your ticket. If his hat is blue, give it to him. If his hat is black, tell him you already paid. Do not hand him anything. Rule 3. Do not look at your reflection in the tunnels. The glass is thinner there. Rule 4. If the lights go out, hold your breath. They can hear you breathing. I balled up the paper and threw it on the floor. Garbage, I muttered. The train jolted forward. The doors hissed shut with a sound that was too final. We were moving. For the first 10 minutes, everything was normal. I checked my phone. No signal. That was weird. I usually had full bars until we hit the river crossing. Then the air conditioning kicked on. It wasn't cool air, it was freezing. It smelled like ozone and something copper-like, like old pennies. Then came the first stop. The train slowed. I remembered the list. Count the stops. This was stop number 1. The platform was normal. A young woman got on. She was wearing a gray hoodie and kept her head down. She sat 3 rows ahead of me, facing away. I relaxed. See? Normal train, normal passengers. We kept moving. Stop number 2 was the Main Street interchange. Nobody got on or off. Stop number 3 was the River Depot. Again, empty. Then we went into the long tunnel section. The noise of the tracks got louder, echoing off the concrete walls outside. Suddenly, the train began to slow down again. I frowned. There wasn't a station between the river and the suburbs. It was 5 miles of straight track. But the brakes squealed. The train came to a complete halt. Stop number 4. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I looked at the crumpled paper on the floor. Rule 1. If the train stops for the 4th time, do not look out the window. The station doesn't exist. I'm a rational guy, but in that silence, with the hum of the lights buzzing like angry hornets, I felt a primal fear. I looked at the girl in the gray hoodie ahead of me. She stood up. She walked toward the doors. "Hey," I called out. "I don't think this is a real stop." She didn't answer. She stood by the doors, waiting for them to open. But they didn't open. She leaned forward and pressed her face against the glass to look out at the platform. I watched her. For a second, nothing happened. Then, she flinched. She didn't scream. She just flinched. And then, she went rigid. Slowly, the girl began to unlock the manual release on the door. "Don't!" I shouted. She got the door open. Outside, there was no platform, just a gray, swirling mist, and something tall, standing in the mist. The girl stepped out. She didn't fall. She just stepped into the mist and was gone. The silence was absolute. No sound of her landing, no footsteps, just gone. The doors slammed shut on their own. The train lurched forward immediately, throwing me back into my seat. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I picked up the paper from the floor. I smoothed it out on my lap. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely read it. I wasn't laughing anymore. I sat frozen for what felt like an hour. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe there was a maintenance ledge. Maybe she was a worker. The door at the end of the carriage slid open. A man walked in. He wore a crisp uniform with brass buttons. He was holding a hole puncher. The conductor. He moved slowly, checking the empty seats as if people were sitting in them. He would nod to an empty seat, punch a ticket that didn't exist, and move on. He was getting closer to me. I looked down at the list. Rule 2, if his hat is blue, give it to him. If his hat is black, tell him you already paid. I looked up. The lighting was terrible. The bulbs were flickering, casting long, twitching shadows. I squinted at his head. It looked dark. Navy blue or black? I couldn't tell. He stopped at my row. He looked down at me. His face was pale, like dough that hadn't been baked. His eyes were too wide, and he didn't blink. "Ticket, please," he said. His voice sounded like it was coming from a radio, static and tinny. I reached for my pocket. My monthly pass was there. But then, I looked at the hat again. In the yellow light, it looked pitch black. But maybe it was just the shadows. If I was wrong, what would happen?
"Ticket," he repeated. He leaned closer. He smelled like wet soil. I made a choice. I took my hand out of my pocket. Empty. I already paid," I stammered. "I gave it to the other conductor." The conductor froze. He stared at me.
His mouth didn't move, but the static sound grew louder. He tilted his head to the side, way too far. His neck cracked. "Very good," the voice buzzed. He turned around and walked away, exiting through the rear door. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I wiped the sweat from my forehead. I was safe. I just had to follow the rules. Then we hit the tunnel again. The windows turned into black mirrors against the tunnel walls. Rule 3, do not look at your reflection in the tunnels. I squeezed my eyes shut. I turned my head away from the window, staring strictly at the aisle. Just don't look. Just don't look. But human nature is a funny thing. When you tell yourself not to do something, it's all you can think about. I sensed movement in my peripheral vision, in the window glass. I kept my eyes on the floor, but the movement got more frantic. It looked like someone was waving at me from inside the glass. I couldn't help it. It was a reflex. I looked. My reflection was sitting there, but it wasn't me. It was wearing my clothes. It had my face, but it was smiling. A wide, impossible smile that stretched from ear to ear, showing too many teeth. And then, while I was staring at it, my reflection raised a hand and pointed at the ceiling. Zap! The lights went out. Pitch black. Rule 4, if the lights go out, hold your breath. I clamped my hand over my mouth. I pinched my nose. The darkness was heavy. It pressed against my skin. I heard footsteps, not shoes. It sounded like wet, bare feet slapping against the floor. Slap, slap, slap. They were coming from the ceiling. Something dropped down into the aisle right next to my seat. I could feel the heat radiating off it. I could hear it breathing, a wet, rattling rasp. It was sniffing the air. It was looking for me. My lungs were burning. My chest screamed for air. I needed to breathe. The thing was inches from my face. I could feel its hair brushing against my cheek. I started to get dizzy. Black spots danced in my vision, even telling myself it was a hallucination. Carbon monoxide poisoning, maybe. A bad dream? I went to the bathroom to wash my face. I needed cold water. I turned on the tap and splashed my face, scrubbing away the sweat and the grime of that train. I grabbed a towel and dried myself off. I felt better. I was safe. I was home. I lowered the towel and looked into the bathroom mirror. My reflection was there, but it wasn't holding a towel. My reflection was holding a crumpled yellow piece of paper. It held it up against the glass so I could read it. There was a Rule 5 written at the bottom, one I had missed because the paper was crumpled. It read, "If you manage to leave the train, don't go home. You aren't alone anymore." My reflection smiled, that same wide, impossible smile, and then the bathroom light flickered out.